Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
An empowered woman is bold. An empowered woman is not afraid to take control of her life, take her time back, find rest and balance in her life, and then being able to maintain those things while being a mom, while being a business owner, while being whatever it is that you are in the world, but still being able to keep yourself first, because we can't do anything for anyone else really to our actual empowered ability unless we're taking care of ourselves.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on visibility strategies for women entrepreneurs. If you want to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice and business, you're in the right place. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Marcia Spurk, and I'm your host, professional singer and visibility strategist. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. One thing I don't talk about enough is the impact podcasting has had on my professional life and how it opened so many doors for me. So if you want to start a podcast or you want to level up your current one, then you need to work with my podcast strategist, Juliana Barbati. She owns a podcast marketing and production agency, and her team takes care of everything from editing and optimizing to scheduling for you, making this process a breeze for you. She's seriously the best. All her info is in the show notes. You can go to julianabarbati.com and tell her I sent you. Hey, neurodivergent entrepreneur. Do you feel overwhelmed and exhausted by your to-do list? Well, it's not your fault. Increase your ease, impact, and income by learning to work with the way you were wired. Take the Intensities quiz right now to understand more about yourself, get strength-based tips, and join free virtual support calls to tackle challenging tasks. Go to intensityhub.com right now to get started.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Marta. Yes, I'm super excited to be with you today.
Yes. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story and how you got into doing what you're doing today, because it's pretty powerful in terms of empowering women with their health and self-awareness as well, and understanding themselves. So why don't you kick us off and tell us who you are and what you do?
Awesome. Thanks. Well, my name is Ashley Klein. On Instagram, it's Coach Ashley Rose Klein. And I am an avid health and fitness girl. I also have PCOS, which is Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. I was diagnosed with that 11 years ago. I would call it a soft diagnosis because back then, doctors were really unsure of what PCOS meant, how to address it, things of that nature. And the other interesting part of my story is I'm not a typical PCOS woman, I guess you would say, because a lot of PCOS women have the characteristic where they're overweight. So it can be really frustrating for obviously women who are overweight because they have the hardest time losing weight. And a lot of times that gets into deeper issues such as like blood sugar, insulin resistance in those cases. But I was a unique case, and they call it lean PCOS now. But I had cysts on my ovaries, which, that's basically what they used to diagnose me, and irregular periods. But they didn't give me a formal diagnosis because I was lean. So after 11 years of going back and forth with endocrinologists, gynecologists, urologists, you name it, I even got into doing some exploratory surgeries, like checking for further things like endometriosis, which unfortunately at the time I was on birth control, as that is the #1 thing that doctors will prescribe for women who have irregular or painful periods or these hormonal symptoms that we see all the time with PCOS. So it's a Band-Aid mechanism, but it also suppresses the effects of PCOS or even endometriosis for that matter. So for me to have undergone surgery was incredibly inappropriate, honestly. So I didn't have to go through that, and I did. And I spent thousands of dollars doing these things. And what's helped me most in my journey is healing naturally. So connecting with a naturopathic doctor and several other practitioners who are connected to her, and really leaning into these holistic practices and even looking at things like diet and lifestyle. Because while going through all of that, there was no mention of, hey, how are you eating? Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting healthy fats? Because that's extremely important for women of all ages, especially when we look at things like keeping the hormones balanced and keeping your body happy. And then also, as women, our bodies are clocks. They run on a cycle. And so if that cycle is not operating the way it's supposed to, we're going to see unwanted symptoms like energy fluctuation, like I call it the 3 p.m. crash, where we're just crashing by 3 p.m. And that's a blood sugar related thing. Yeah. So there are ways to address what's happening with PCOS and therefore reverse the symptoms that myself and other women are experiencing. So I think it's just incredibly important that we look at those factors first and we say, okay, hey, X, diet, movement, whatever. And a lot of those pieces aren't there or aren't there to the extent that they need to be. Or they need to be manipulated a little bit because I've not been overweight, like I said, but now that I've stopped moving my body as much as I was when I was coaching at a gym all day, I'm noticing fat gain that I, normally would have never seen in my body. And so that's incredibly frustrating because a lot of these women are being told, hey, lose weight, exercise more. And they're already doing those things. Right. So, and then we look at the stress component of this and it's high cortisol levels. And so then these women are doing rigorous exercise routines and chronic dieting, and they're putting their body through more stress and actually fueling their PCOS, right? Fueling some of these negative symptoms, trying to alleviate them. So it just becomes this chaotic, volatile environment where it leaves the woman who has PCOS feeling incredibly defective.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find it so remarkable that not only have you gone through all this journey and got informed for yourself, but now you're supporting women with this knowledge and spreading the awareness so that they can understand their bodies a little bit more. Because like you said, oftentimes we don't find the support that we need, unfortunately, in the health system. People don't really know how to treat you. They just do whatever. And even, oh my gosh, exploratory surgeries with being a young, healthy, otherwise woman and going through all that, not to mention the financial cost as well. Mm-hmm. That is crazy. Tell us more about how you transitioned then into helping women into that and starting your business. So you used to do personal training beforehand. Tell us more.
Yeah. So I transitioned into helping women with PCOS when I realized I have all this fitness knowledge. I have all this nutrition knowledge. I loved working with clients one-on-one, just with general things like just achieving a weight loss goal, achieving a strength goal, achieving daily habits. A lot of times people would come to me with, oh, I need a routine, or, oh, I need to look like you. I need, and a lot of those things, made me realize that there's a mindset component to anything that you want to do in life, right? And it's a huge step that requires being bold to make a change in your life. And, often when we go through change, it's painful and it's very challenging because it's growing us and it's stretching us and we're moving into this unfamiliar territory. So we go through this period of pure excitement where we're thrilled to dive into, for PCOS example, our PCOS journey, right? But then we hit bumps and snags along the way and we get discouraged and we can't look at flare-ups or even weight gain back as a step backwards, because even oftentimes weight gained is muscle building. And so there's this psychological component with the weight loss. The weight loss is happening, but people don't see it, don't realize it, don't feel it. And so they're discrediting all of the hard work that they've done, feeling like they're not making progress when in reality they are. And I even have an example that I was going to share with you if we had time of my symptoms, because I had terrible acne. I had hair growing on my chin, growing on my face, on my breasts, on my stomach. And those are all indicators of PCOS. Mm-hmm. And I just realized that there's a significant amount of women out there who probably have PCOS, but they just have no idea because a lot of people think it just involves having cysts on your ovaries. When in fact, a lot of times when they're seeing that on an ultrasound, doctors are seeing that, they're seeing underdeveloped young follicles. And that has to do with what's happening hormonally. Like women with PCOS have excess androgens, testosterone in the blood. So that is feeding the ovaries and it's limiting ovulation, right? It's driving irregular cycles. So women who aren't polycystic aren't aware that they can still have PCOS if they have symptoms like they can't lose weight, they can't keep it off. It just keeps coming back. That's insulin resistance. And, if it's left untreated, it can lead to things like heart disease and diabetes. So that is really what drove me into wanting to reach this community and just raise awareness for, hey, it could be a lot bigger picture than what you think it is. And we got to stop with these Band-Aid solutions and we've got to address the root cause because every woman's journey with PCOS is different. And there's protocol that we can follow that helps us start diagnosing things. One source that I like to use a lot is Dr. Fiona. She's a naturopathic doctor. She's worked with women clinically for 16 years, and I follow a lot of her research and studies, and she has a lot of great resources, including a PCOS quiz. So it breaks down the most important components when we're looking at PCOS, which we're going to think androgens, we're going to think irregular cycles. We're going to think, okay, are there cysts on the ovaries? But there are also other drivers behind PCOS, like is it thyroid? Is it autoimmune? Is it inflammation? Is it just because you came off birth control? There are several different factors that go into each woman's PCOS journey.
Right.
Where we can solve one, and it might knock out some of the others. But typically there are, I'd say, 1 to 3 main drivers that if someone tackles, they can start alleviating symptoms. But that's when the health change or the healing plan changes because you're healing. So that's why the support is necessary for someone to come alongside you and say, okay, we're seeing success here. And oftentimes this is where people will discredit success, right? They only look at the failures. And that's where they need someone to say, okay, we've got this going for us. So now we just have to move to this piece and we have to tackle this piece more in depth, right? And that's just what drove me to start this community for women.
That's amazing. So how do you work with clients then when somebody comes to you? Is it typically people that suspect they have it or they have received some type of diagnosis, whether it be, like you said, a soft diagnosis or a specific diagnosis because it was lots of indicators as well. And then they're looking for support on different things that they can do more on the holistic side of things. And then looking at their lifestyle, like what you're saying, their habits, their eating habits, nutrition, exercise. How do you work with clients?
Yeah. So I have a 5-step framework. It's called my Sustainable Change Framework. Actually going to be sharing this in my upcoming book. It should be released in early January. So this is my story just laid out as honestly and plainly as I can. And I've struggled with addiction. There's been several things that I've learned about my brain chemistry, my hormones, how I need to eat to support and fuel my body. And that's from and through experience, but also through many of these professionals, health professionals that I've worked with along the way. And I've just kind of put together a 5-step framework that helps you tackle mindset, helps with habit building. We look at nourishing the body. We look at how we're moving the body. And then we look at a maintenance phase, right? So we achieve mindset and it kind of bleeds into habits a little bit. And I actually offer a 16-week program where I'm taking women through breaking down the root cause of their PCOS and then breaking down what's driving those symptoms for them. And a lot of times that's where mindset kicks in because it's a lot to process to say, okay, I have to do this. And that's where we have to be bold and we have to decide that we're going to do it because sometimes it requires making some sacrificial changes at first to rule some things out. And I love when my women get to a point, which is maintenance, which is the end goal of my program, where they can start incorporating their ethnic foods again, or their dairy and gluten or whatever. I don't teach restrictively. Clients who work with me might track food from time to time, but that's just so that we have a baseline for data.
Yeah.
Some of my clients like tracking because it helps hold them accountable for educational purposes, but I also make sure that my clients aren't becoming obsessive with anything that they're doing because it's not healthy. Because then if that element isn't in their routine or their day, they're going to think they failed. And a lot of times that's where I hear, oh, I fell off the wagon. And I'm like, okay, just get back on the wagon.
Yeah.
You know? So through my 5-step framework, they phase through the program. The goal is to have it over 16 weeks. For some women, it ends up being less. You can start seeing an improvement in symptoms in 1 to 2 weeks.
Right.
However, most of the time ends up being 8 weeks or longer for you to really, kind of like you were asking. It just depends on where they're at in their journey.
Yeah.
And I do have some framework. I have a pre-event interview that I do with clients just to make sure that the event's going to be relevant to them, and that the community is going to be something that can help support them on their journey. But I have ways to kind of fit people in wherever they're at in their journey. And I've had some women make it all the way to maintenance in the 16 weeks, but I've had some women who need ongoing accountability and support, which I offer, other services for that. So
yeah, that's wonderful.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Would you like to be my next guest on the Empowered Woman podcast? Do you have a story you'd like to share? Want more visibility for your business on a show ranked in the top 0.5% in the world? Well, then head on over to martasburg.com/podcast guest for more information.
Just to recap, because I think in the last few years, PCOS has become something that people are used to hearing, even if they're not 100% familiar with what it means. I would love for you to walk us through, because you talked about some of the misconceptions. Typically, like what you were saying, even the doctors, right, we're thinking it can't be PCOS because you're not overweight. And then come to find out that's not necessarily the only indication. So for anyone listening, what is PCOS and why is it something that potentially we should be watching out for as women, and then getting educated and reaching out to you to learn more?
yeah, absolutely. PCOS is a number of contributing factors that affect a woman's ability to get pregnant. So oftentimes that's another thing. It's hard to get a diagnosis until you are seeking pregnancy, right? And so that's why, again, having birth control or metformin, metformin is, what they'll use for insulin resistance and managing that. So we look for symptoms of high androgens, which is going to be acne, unwanted facial hair, body hair, male pattern, balding. So hair loss can be a factor as well. Elevated testosterone levels in the blood, which fuels, the DHT. And there's just a few components around that are very important to look at. So blood testing is something that's really important to consider. But I wouldn't say you necessarily have to start there. Like if you're just getting into this, I would say you're going to want to look at doing something like just incorporating spearmint tea into your regimen, switch your coffee for spearmint tea and start there and see if you notice an improvement in symptoms, because they've done some studies on spearmint tea and it's shown to help reduce androgens. So it's a good place to start. But for the more seasoned person dealing with this, then I would say, okay, we've tried X, Y, and Z. We've looked at a diet component. We've maybe tried some anti-inflammatory foods. We've maybe tried cutting out dairy and gluten if that seems to be a driving factor for them. And then I would say, okay, let's get some blood tests done to back that up. But otherwise, they're looking for irregular absent menstrual periods. A lot of times that's anovulation. So women who are not ovulating, and that's one of the contributing factors to the infertility component. Polycystic ovaries is the other one, which I kind of talked about already. But again, sometimes they are cysts. I did have cysts at one point, but I also now believe that they are mostly underdeveloped follicles because I have high testosterone. So that is fueling and limiting my ability to conceive. I've been with my husband for 6 years and have not been able to. So although I've healed myself from certain components of my PCOS, I'm still diving in deeper to heal that ultimate problem. So at this point, I'm probably ready to do blood tests and stuff again and just kind of see where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, but then the last component is like a lipid panel. So if they notice high cholesterol, that's, normal with PCOS. But otherwise, they might do a physical exam, check blood pressure, BMI, things like that, do a pelvic exam, glucose tolerance test. But some of the symptoms that you might not know, so those are those kind of 4 main things that they look for. But we also are looking at chronic fatigue. We're looking at low energy levels, kind of like I said, we're crashing in the middle of the day. Insulin resistance, which is your blood sugar, sleep issues. A lot of women have sleep apnea or insomnia. There's hormonal imbalances that are going to contribute to mood swings, headaches, things like that. So that's where estrogen dominance comes into play. Androgen excess, like the testosterone, which is responsible for those unwanted symptoms like dark or stubborn hair. Sometimes we have velvety patches in our skin or hair, particularly on the face, chin, upper lip line, chest, stomach. High cortisol, thyroid conditions, autoimmune disorders. And that's when PCOS has gotten really far, right? That's when we start seeing those autoimmune disorders. Chronic fight or flight mode is a big one. So we look at the nervous system, and there's a lot of new research coming out on the nervous system, and I'm actually diving into this myself. So I'm really excited to see where this goes, because there's even some research coming out on how, if we're not addressing the nervous system component, any of the homeopathic remedies or medical remedies that we try won't work.
Wow.
Because it's also possible that the body's not functioning, absorbing or detoxing on a cellular level. So if that's happening, any supplement that a woman is taking, even if it would help their PCOS or their hormones or their symptoms, it's not going to work. So we have to look at that component as well. And what they're also finding is women who need that nervous system healing, a lot of them have been abused, or there's some kind of component that, hasn't recently been connected. I'm interested to see where that goes, but there are several different factors. And the other big one is, just if they lose weight, that can also help improve symptoms by a large percentage.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And that's why it's such a tricky condition, because there's so much that goes into it, and that could be something else, right? But it's really a deep dive into your own body, because like you said, everyone is so different. It's not something like, if you have this, then this is it. It's so many different things. And thank you for the tips on that. Besides doing the blood test and investigating a little bit further, you could start making some changes right now and seeing if any of that improves. And I'm very grateful that your book is coming out. That's exciting, because then people are going to get to hear your story and get some of those tips in more detail on there. What are some of the other things that you are working on that you have coming up, and ways people can connect with you?
Yeah. So my first book is going to be about my story, kind of as I already mentioned, and we're going to include that 5-step sustainable change framework. There will be an opportunity for readers to connect with me one-on-one, as well as chances for them to take my 16-week program, which as of October 17, I am launching my mini video course. So 16-week video course, which this is specifically geared towards PCOS women, whereas my first book is not going to be. It's just going to be, this is who Ashley is. These are some basic steps to take to start incorporating change into your life, to take out some old habits and establish some new ones. Take back your time, because we're very technology-driven, connected world now, which, I do believe is contributing to these higher amounts of stress that we're seeing as well. So it's incredibly important to disconnect. And there's a lot of stories and raw information in there, very heartfelt information. There are some fill in the blank questions and exercises that folks can do if they're looking to make those sustainable changes, which sustainable is something that we can keep doing. It's not something that we do for a short time and we stop. We want to be able to continue to do it. But you can expect to see my first book on Amazon early in 2025. So really excited about that. My manuscript is due October 3rd, and we'll be going into editing from there. But yeah, it's a resource for anyone trying to take back control of their life and their time. And I dive into the concepts that helped me personally, and also that I've, again, picked up along the way from mentors, coaches, medical professionals. So I'm also hosting a live event for PCOS women. I'm calling it the Hope and Healing event. It's a virtual PCOS event, and it is free. But as I said earlier, I do require a pre-interview call just so I can connect with women. I like to meet who's going to be in the event. So it's just a little bit more personable that way, and get to make sure that the information is relevant and helpful to them. So there's a way for you to connect with me in that aspect, and then save your seat for the free event. In this event in particular, it is special because September is PCOS Awareness Month. Go teal. Teal's our ribbon color. So I am going to be giving away some awesome coaching opportunities to the first 10 women who reserve their seat for my event. There's going to be some one-on-one opportunities to work with me and just help further in the journey than it would with just basic group support. So
that's wonderful. I'm so glad you have all these different opportunities for women to connect with you for their general health, but then specifically for those that are struggling with PCOS. Now, before I let you tell us how to connect with you specifically, you share that you're on Instagram, but any other information, I like to ask all my guests my $1 million question. Are you ready?
I am ready, Marta. Hit me with it.
Ashley, what is an empowered woman then?
An empowered woman is bold. An empowered woman is not afraid to take control of her life, take her time back, find rest and balance in her life, which to me and to most people looks like nourishing your body, moving your body, having a healthy mindset and good habits that fuel your nourishment and how you move your body, and then being able to maintain those things while being a mom, while being a business owner, while being whatever it is that you are in the world, but still being able to keep yourself first, because we can't do anything for anyone else really to our, empowered, actual empowered ability unless we're taking care of ourselves.
So true. I love that answer. Thank you so much for sharing. Now tell us, how can people connect with you? You hang out the most on Instagram. Are you on any other platform, your website? And obviously so they can stay tuned for your book launch soon.
Absolutely. Everything that I talk about is definitely on Instagram. That's going to be your best source for me. It's where I post stories. I share content that's relatable to PCOS women. It's where you can catch the information on my events. I also have a landing page. So if you go into my Instagram bio, there is a link there. And if you follow the link, it's going to take you to a page where you can book a couple different calls, or if you're not quite ready to do that, you can submit your information and that will add you to my email list. So I send out updates on what's going on with my book, upcoming events, and opportunities to connect with me. I also just did a free month of coaching giveaway. So I had someone who won that. So if you're on that list, there's, for sure opportunities for you to win some fun opportunities and connect with me. So
that's great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, your expertise. And again, thanks for your work out there empowering women with their health and their life in general. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity to connect. I love your most recent song that's come out. I play it at least once a day because it's inspiring. So
great to hear.
I absolutely love that. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.